Welcome everyone, this is Unannounced Restart, and this time we're talking about the different potential games we might be seeing from Nintendo in 2021. I'm talking about the unannounced games, the secret games that Nintendo has yet to reveal to us. Which of those games that Nintendo's been working on for the last few years could we be seeing next year, the year that may very well be the Switch's peak year? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now before we jump into things, I want to quickly talk about my social media. There is a Twitter page, a Discord community, a Patron page, and a Twitch channel. If you are interested in any of that, check it all out. It's linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, subscribe. So, many are speculating that 2021 could be a really good year for the Nintendo Switch. Some are even thinking it could be the peak year, or maybe even the best year we've ever seen from Nintendo. It could very well be that good, and even if it's not that good, I think it could be close. It could at least be a very strong year for the Switch, and it's going to include games that we don't know about, unannounced games. So that's what we're focusing on today. We're not going to be talking about games like Bayonetta 3, or Breath of the Wild 2, or Monster Hunter Rise. We're going to be focusing on games that are being made by Nintendo that haven't been announced yet, that we could be seeing potentially next year. There's a whole bunch of options. I may miss some studios that Nintendo has that they could be working on something, but I'm going to try and cover most of the big ones, and I think at least some of these will definitely be coming out next year. Even if we don't necessarily know exactly what these studios may be working on, we can at least get an idea of what they might be working on considering the track record of these different studios. To get things started, let's talk about Intelligent Systems. Intelligent Systems is responsible for Fire Emblem. Now, Fire Emblem Three Houses just came out in 2019, not that long ago. They even had DLC, so why am I even considering them as an option for 2021? Games usually take longer than just 2 years to be made, especially if it's a big game like Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's why I'm not going to even consider a game from Next Level Games, because they just came out with Luigi's Mansion 3 last year, towards the end of the year. So why am I bringing up Fire Emblem from Intelligent Systems? Why are they a different situation? Well, firstly, I think it's worth noting that Intelligent Systems had some help from Koei Tecmo to make Fire Emblem Three Houses, but on top of that, if you look at how Fire Emblem is, at least on the 3DS, there's a lot of Fire Emblem games on that system. There is Fire Emblem Awakening, there is Fates, there is Echo Shadows of Valentia. There is a lot of Fire Emblem there, and in terms of brand new Fire Emblem games on the Switch so far, we only have Fire Emblem Three Houses. So if we're going to be matching the pace of the Fire Emblem games we saw on the 3DS, then I think there's a decent chance we could be seeing another next year. Now, if I had to place my money, I would say more likely the year after, 2022, but if Intelligent Systems is working on a Fire Emblem remake using the Three Houses engine, then maybe they could get it done a little bit quicker and we see it next year. I think there's definitely a chance of that. Now when it comes to 2021 speculation, we pretty often on this channel bring up the Zelda 35th anniversary. Breath of the Wild 2 very likely is going to have something to do with that. But given that it's the Zelda 35th anniversary, and Zelda has become a much bigger deal now, Breath of the Wild is outpacing Mario Odyssey. We've never seen that before, where a 3D Zelda outsells a 3D Mario. This is a whole new era where Zelda has a lot more popularity now. Now, I'm not saying it's bigger than Mario overall, but definitely Zelda is growing. Nintendo is maintaining that trend of releasing at least one relatively major Zelda game per year. But in the 35th anniversary, considering how Nintendo celebrated the Mario anniversary and the trademarks for the merchandising and such, we could be seeing more than one Zelda game next year, which means we might see something else beyond just Breath of the Wild. And if that's the case, my bet is on another remaster or remake, one made by Grezzo. Grezzo brought us Link's Awakening in 2019. Again, 2019 is not that long ago. We're only about a year removed since then. But for 2021, that'll already be about a year and a half to 2 years, we could possibly see some sort of remake remaster. The one I have in mind is Skyward Sword HD. That's a game that's already been made to upscale the visuals in HD to clean up the textures and change around the controls somewhat. That wouldn't require a very long development time, and considering what Grezzo's done since Link's Awakening, I think it's very conceivable that Grezzo could be working on some sort of Skyward Sword HD or Zelda collection for 2021. My bet is Skyward Sword HD. I think Nintendo might want to save those other Zelda games for other Zelda years because, well, they want to have some sort of Zelda game coming out pretty much every single year. So my bet is Skyward Sword HD, developed by Grezzo in 2021, alongside Breath of the Wild 2 for the Zelda 35th anniversary. And since we're talking about anniversaries, there's also the Pokemon 25th anniversary. Pokemon Company is not going to skip their anniversary. They basically have anniversary celebrations every single year. Whenever they have some sort of game announcement, they always have some sort of trailer celebrating the history of Pokemon, like it's some sort of evolution from year to year, every time. So something as major as a 25th anniversary, Pokemon Company definitely won't be missing out here. And I think Game Freak, the developers for the mainline Pokemon games, will for sure have a Pokemon game coming out next year, because they pretty much have a Pokemon game coming out almost every single year. There's a few exceptions, this year 2020 being one of them, where they had DLC instead. In my mind, it's highly unlikely the Game Freak will skip 2 years with brand new mainline Pokemon releases. So for the 25th anniversary, I feel like it's super likely we will be seeing a new Pokemon game from Game Freak. What could that be? Well, right now the speculation is either Let's Go Johto or Sinnoh remakes. So definitely some other Pokemon game is coming up for the 25th anniversary for the Pokemon series made by Game Freak next year. I think that's a sure bet. Now, another Nintendo developer that hasn't come out with a game in a while is Camelot. The last game we saw from them was Mario Tennis Aces in 2018, and considering the kind of games they make, I think a 3-year development cycle is pretty reasonable. 2021 will be 3 years after Mario Tennis Aces, so I think there's a pretty decent chance we could be seeing another game from them. Now, what could that be? Considering that they've pretty much only been making Mario sports games the last few years, I feel like there's a really good chance they're making another Mario sports game. Maybe they're making Mario Strikers. That would be nice to see. Maybe it's something else. Also, it's possible that we could finally be seeing Golden Sun. Maybe they're working on Golden Sun instead of a Mario sports game. There's a chance of that, but I feel like the safest bet is another Mario sports game. Mario sports games, there's always a handful of them on every Nintendo system, so I think there's definitely a good chance we could be seeing another one next year. We've been talking about Nintendo developers that haven't come out with a game in 2 or 3 years. But there's a Nintendo developer that hasn't come out with a fully fledged game since 2014, and that developer is Retro Studios. Now, recently we got word that Retro Studios is expanding their headquarters, and we're continually seeing them make more and more hires. It does seem like they are growing and expanding, and a lot of special things are happening there right now. We know they are deep into development for Metroid Prime 4. But we've talked about those before on the channel. I feel like it's weird that Nintendo would hand over Metroid Prime 4 if Retro Studios was unable to make a game in over half a decade. So my speculation has been for a while already that they do have something that's near ready. So maybe that near ready game could be coming out next year. Now, it's entirely possible that they either canceled this game or they delayed it or what have you, and we won't be seeing it anytime soon because of Metroid Prime 4. And maybe Nintendo decided that even though they couldn't come out with a game during that time, that doesn't mean they wouldn't be able to make Metroid Prime 4. They were able to see what Retro Studios has been working on behind the scenes, so really it comes down to what they saw and them having faith in them, for sure. But I still feel like there's a decent chance that Retro Studios does have something. They didn't just do nothing for over half a decade. They had to have been working on some sort of software, some sort of game. And if that's really the case, I gotta think that 2021 would be the year we see it. What could it be? Well, there was that piece of artwork that was given to Reggie for his retirement from Retro Studios that included a few different Nintendo characters that were worked on by Retro Studios like Donkey Kong and Samus, but there was another mysterious one hiding behind a Mario statue. A lot of people speculate about what it could be. To me, it looked like some sort of character similar to Monita from Nintendo Land, so I thought, maybe Retro Studios has been working on some sort of Nintendo Land variant. That wouldn't be a big major game, but it could be a nice little side game that could come out next year in tandem with the other big games coming out next year, while Retro Studios is deep into development for the amazing, awesome, epic Metroid Prime 4. Now, something else that Retro Studios may have worked on would be the remaster or HD rework of Metroid Prime Trilogy. That game has been long rumored as well, maybe that's what they've been working on, and that's also something we can be seeing next year. And even if Retro Studios isn't responsible for the HD treatment of Prime Trilogy, I still think Prime Trilogy is very much real and likely coming out next year. We've talked about on the channel already how it seems like there's potentially a decent bet for Prime Trilogy to be coming out around the 35th anniversary for Metroid. It seems like Nintendo may be prepping for that big marketing push leading into Metroid Prime 4, likely for 2022. So we could be seeing a Prime Trilogy coming out next year, and maybe even a 2D Metroid, which brings us to another game we could potentially be seeing next year that hasn't been announced yet, and that's a 2D Metroid. We've theorized on the channel that perhaps Mercury Steam, the team responsible for Samus Returns, has been working on that game. They haven't done anything major since then, so they gotta be working on something, and there just seemed to be a lot of interest for another 2D game to be made by them. So I think there's a decent chance, especially considering all the rumors that also backed Paper Mario, and that's proven to be real, that maybe a 2D Metroid has been in development, and maybe it's being developed by Mercury Steam, and maybe it's another one of those unannounced games that could be coming out in 2021. Another potential unannounced game that we could be seeing coming out in 2021 would be a game from Monolith Soft. Now, this year we did get to see Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition come out from Monolith Soft. They do make the Xenoblade games, and Definitive Edition is a relatively ambitious remaster, but at the end of the day, that's what it is, a remaster. Not to mention Monolith Soft has several different studios and sites, so they could be working on multiple games. Actually, we know they are working on multiple games, and actually in 2018, we saw job listings for 2 projects, and we may not have seen either of those projects yet. There's a lot of speculation that one of those games is a Xenoblade game, which wouldn't be surprising because that's what Monolith Soft does, Xenoblade games, so they're probably working on the next big Xenoblade game. But also, they could be trying something else, perhaps a new IP. Maybe we could be seeing that new IP next year, or heck, they just give us a trailer for Xenoblade 3. One or the other, maybe both. The point I'm trying to make here is that Monolith Soft has a lot going on in the background, and we could start to see the fruits of all of that development next year in 2021, and I think it could be really awesome. Before I get to the final segment here where I talk about the final few really big ones we could be seeing in 2021, I feel like I should bring up the possibility of Pikmin 4, because if I don't, I think people might be upset, and I'm not saying it's not possible. Pikmin 4 could definitely be happening, and actually, I feel like the fact that we got to see Pikmin 3 Deluxe this year is suggestive that Nintendo hasn't entirely forgotten about Pikmin, and that Pikmin 4 could very much be announced relatively soon, like actually announced, not just somewhat announced by Miyamoto years ago. According to Miyamoto, Pikmin 4 has been near the end of development for years, since before the Switch was even announced, and we still haven't seen it yet. I think the obvious situation here is that they scrapped the development of that, or restarted it, or put it on a shelf for a later time, and they're gonna work on it again at some point. And they may very well be already working on that, and they're simply waiting for the right time to announce it. And 2021 could be that time, so I think it definitely deserves to be mentioned in this video, because it might be announced for next year. Maybe. I don't know for sure, but definitely maybe. And now for the final segment. Now, when I say final segment, I don't mean one particular game. It's just 3 games, really. So, in 2017, I think we got the best year ever from Nintendo. Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, Splatoon 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Super Mario Odyssey, and a few other pretty awesome games as well. But that lineup was just incredible. 2021 could have a similar kind of lineup. It could be that kind of strong, because a lot of the developers from Nintendo that had games come out then haven't had anything come out since then. And 2021 would be 4 years after then. That would be enough time to make a big major game and have it ready in 2021. 4 years is a pretty healthy development cycle, so I think there's a chance we could be seeing a lot of them, and maybe some of the games I've already mentioned are some of those games, but let's talk about a few more. So technically the studio is also responsible for Animal Crossing New Horizons, but either way, they can work on more than one game at once, and they came out with Splatoon 2 in 2017, and at the beginning of this year, 2020, we did see a little bit of a teaser from the Splatoon team about Splatoon, and it was using the Salmonids and such, and it was like kind of like a cry for help, an SOS actually, and some people were speculating, myself included, that that could be related to some sort of new game. It may have just been a cute little piece of artwork to function as fan service and nothing more, but again, there's also the distinct possibility that it was some sort of tease, and even if it wasn't a tease specifically, they're definitely working on the next Splatoon. The real question here, is that Splatoon game coming out next year, or is it a longer ways off? That's hard to say, we don't really know, but definitely it's a possibility for next year. It's another potential game we could be seeing coming out in 2021. And it might not even be Splatoon 3, maybe it's some sort of spin-off Splatoon game, perhaps some sort of dedicated salmon run game. I think that'd be kind of fun to see a Splatoon game or a Splatoon game using a dedicated Horde mode. I love Horde mode kind of games, but we shall see what 2021 holds. ARMS was a pretty big game that came out in 2017, and the team behind ARMS also is responsible for Mario Kart 8. They haven't done anything since 2017 besides just DLC for ARMS. So I feel like it's a pretty safe bet to say that they are very deep into development for their next big game. 4 years after ARMS, I think, is a pretty good amount of time, and I think there's a really good chance we could be seeing their game coming out. And looking at what they've done, Mario Kart 8 and ARMS, I would say there's plenty of reason to believe that what they're working on is another big multiplayer game that will take advantage of Nintendo's online. And considering a lot of the big RPGs and single-player adventure games that are slated for 2021, or at least seeming likely to coming out in 2021, Nintendo's probably going to also want to have some sort of big multiplayer game. So maybe we'll be seeing that in 2021. What could it be? Well, maybe it could be Mario Kart 9. People have been waiting for that. Maybe Nintendo won't wait a whole other generation to give us another Mario Kart. That's a possibility. Maybe they're working on something else. Maybe they're working on F-Zero, an online F-Zero. I would love that. I think the Mario Kart ARMS team would do a great job of doing that. Or maybe it's something else altogether. If you guys have any ideas, I would love to hear them in the comments below. And now on to the final unannounced game we could maybe see in 2021. And that's the next big game that the Mario Odyssey team has been working on. The Mario Odyssey team finished Mario Odyssey in 2017. They didn't even release any paid DLC for Mario Odyssey. I think that's kind of weird, and considering how successful Mario Odyssey was, it definitely feels kind of like a Galaxy situation, especially with all the concept art we saw afterwards. There's a lot of room for improvement and more ideas here, and with Galaxy, we got to see Galaxy 2. So maybe instead of creating paid DLC, they simply started focusing on creating the next big game for the Mario series, perhaps a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey. Maybe we'll be seeing the sequel to Mario Odyssey in 2021. I think there's a pretty good chance of that, assuming they've been working on it all this time, the last 3 or so years, and by the time it would come out next year, 4 whole years. That's more than enough time to make another big Mario game, especially if they're using the Odyssey engine. But I also think it's worth noting that it doesn't have to be a Mario game. We are already getting 3D World Deluxe plus Bowser's Fury next year, so maybe they aren't working on a Mario game. Maybe Mario is just be taking a break for a while. Maybe they're working on a big Donkey Kong game or something else, something crazy. Maybe a Kid Icarus game or a Star Fox game. I'm really just kind of going crazy with my speculation here, but I feel like a big team like the Mario Odyssey team would likely work on something that is a surefire bet to make a lot of money. So Kid Icarus or Star Fox likely wouldn't be it, but Donkey Kong definitely has sold really well in the past, so if they're not working on a big new Mario game, a big new Donkey Kong game, like a 3D Donkey Kong game, I think they could definitely get away with that and sell quite a few million, so I think that's a possibility. But I think the safest bet is to say that they are working on the next big Mario game, perhaps Mario Odyssey sequel, and I still think there's a chance it could come out in 2021, even with 3D World Deluxe. We've seen Nintendo release multiple Mario games in a year. I'm not just talking about the spin-offs. For example, look at New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe and Mario Maker 2. I think there's a chance that we can see 3D World Deluxe in the beginning of 2021, and a big new, actual new Mario game at the end of 2021. As we talked about in the beginning of the video, considering that in 2021, the PlayStation 5 and the Series X will finally be going strong, meeting demand, having a lot of really good games coming out, Nintendo's going to want to come out swinging. So some of the games we talked about in this video could definitely be coming out then. But also, maybe some of those games won't be coming out next year, perhaps they could be coming out in 2022 or beyond. We really don't know for sure, but I would say if the game's been in development for like 4 years, then the game's probably ready or close to ready, and 2021 is a pretty good bet. But we've seen Nintendo do strange things, like look at Pikmin 4. That game has been in development for a very, very long time, so it's hard to say for sure. Either way though, I think it's pretty clear after looking over everything that Nintendo has tons and tons of options for awesome game releases next year. So I'm really excited about the promise of next year. I think it's very strong, and I think the speculation that 2021 could be the peak year for the Nintendo Switch is not really a stretch at all. I would say it's likely, but 2017 was also really good, so only time will really tell here. But I'm excited. Are you guys excited? Let me know what you guys think could be happening. I'm really curious. But anyways, everyone, that's all for now. This is Unannounced Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.